Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so excited about this. Well, I think since I'm a historian, I'm going to read a quote, okay? So, supposed to be here. Okay, well, good thing I memorized it. The virtue of all wrestling, is that it is a spectacle of the excess. I know this seems like an exaggeration, but I can prove it to you, okay? Exhibit A. Oh my God. This worked great yesterday. Okay, Exhibit A. Yeah, that should have hurt. Okay, let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Is Lucha Libre real? I hope there's no wrestlers tonight who will put me in a headlock before I had the opportunity to explain myself. Disclaimer, I'm a huge Lucha Libre fan. And I have been a fan since I was a little kid. I just think that the unreality of the Lucha Libre is on the same level as other lies humanity tells ourselves to endure the tragedy of life. Lucha Libre is not a sporting event where success is measured by wins or losses. It's a staging, a performance, where what really matters are the melodramatic attributes of the luchadores to represent the war drama. In Mexico, the strength of the gimmick lies in the mask. What is the gimmick? Is the fictional character embodied by the wrestlers. In the moment they cover their faces, the luchadores cross the bridge that separates the real from the imaginary wall. They create an alternate personality. I know that you don't believe me, but let me tell you, Mil Máscaras is still wrestling with 80 years old. Yes, you heard it right, 80 years. I don't know how he does it. I mean, I'm in my 30s, and I heard myself at the gym the other day. Imagine wrestling with 80 years. I think it's all part of the Lucha Libre magic, because humans age, regular humans, but legends remain. The mystical transcendence of the mask is the reason why Lucha de Apuestas in Mexico, in which the loser is unmasked, are the most important. At the end of the fight, the arena becomes a scaffold, and the winner becomes the executioner who completes the ritual sacrifice in which the legend dies. Now, the face is uncovered, and while the last piece of cloth is detached from the mortal flesh that binds it, you can see the legend ascending with the mask and the symbol to the paradise, leaving us, the spectators, in the purgatory of whims and nostalgias. Because yes, every Lucha Libre fan across the world has shed a few, or in my case, a bunch of tears. I think it's all part of the contract. If you ain't crying about it, you ain't feeling it the right way. Lucha Libre has become such a fundamental part of Mexican culture that today the two seem inseparable. However, few know that its origins are actually on the other side of the border. On this side of the border. Well, the important thing is that Lucha Libre was born actually here in El Paso. Incredible, right? Salvador Lutero Gonzalez, who is widely known as the father of Mexican Lucha Libre, worked as a tax inspector during the turbulent years of the Mexican Revolution. He began attending Liberty Hall on Kansas Street to watch catch-as-catch-can performances, which is a fancy word for like a bloody spectacle of wrestling. Oh my God, they were like super bloody. Like not right like now, like bloody, okay? Lutero Gonzalez was struck by the weird atmospheres of these shows, but also by the violence of the spectators. Because, in wrestling, the crowd is super important. You know what I mean? Like the sweet old lady screaming, "Kill the bastard!" Or the little kids who are crying because the bad guys are beating up on the good guys. So, Lutero Gonzalez, this is my kid watching wrestling. So, Lutero Gonzalez went back to Mexico City and created the EMLL, which to this day remain as the flagship of Mexican Lucha Libre. His promotion began to drag large attention because it began to incorporate Mexican folklore into its characters and into its storylines. To this day, we can still watch in all Mexican rings the clash or primordial forces and classic archetypes because it's a theater, a representation, right? Let's think about this for a second, okay? El cobarde, the coward, somehow overcomes his fears and managed to apply a spinning backflip to El Huracán Ramirez, the hurricane. Blue Demon twists El Santo's arm and drives him away from the promised land. Dr. Wagner tried to cure the schizophrenia of all the psycho clowns that populate the world, using violence, right? Because it's Lucha Libre. Among all the stars that shine in the EMLL, there's one that stands out, not only because of its quality, but because it had strong ties to El Paso. Cody Rhodes, who should have won the championship last Sunday in WrestleMania, but he didn't. Poor storytelling, if you ask me. Well, he's right when he claimed that there is more than one royal family in wrestling. The Guerrero family, who is from Arizona, but they're based here in El Paso, they're one of the most famous and long-standing dynasties in wrestling. Their patriarch, Salvador Gotti Guerrero, and Gotti because he was bloody, Gotti Guerrero shines brightly at the MLL. He quickly rose to the top. He wins several championships, and even he became part of La Pareja Atómica with El Santo. I think he even wrestled with Lou Thesz for the NWA Championship. If you're wrestling fans, you know that that's a huge deal, right? So when Gotti finished defeating is not the right word, because Gotti, when he finishing up massacring his rivals at the EMLL, he moved to El Paso. And then his work as a promoter and wrestler, because he was 50 years old, but he still wrestled, transformed this region, Juárez El Paso, into one of the cathedrals of wrestling. And I'm saying Juárez El Paso because, yes, Gotti liked to cross the border to fight at Plaza Las Valderas. So if you were a wrestler back then and you said, like, it's okay, I'm from Juárez, I didn't have to face Gotti, well, tough luck, you do. The reputation of Juárez El Paso as one of the cathedrals of wrestling has brought many great names, such as Fishman, El Cobarde, Casandro, yeah, big fan too, Casandro and Pagano, right? Some time ago, a friend of mine, a Mexican friend of mine, he was born right here in El Paso. And then he felt ashamed to say that he was born in the United States because he didn't feel 100% Mexican. I think what we have just discussed disproves this misconception. Juárez, El Paso is the same region, and El Paso vibrates with culture that cannot be cut off by a dry river or a border wall. An example of this is that here in El Paso, in Kansas Street, like 2 minutes away, right? 2 minutes? I'm not very good with directions. Okay, on Kansas Street, an idea was born, an idea that would later cross the border to become one of the most distinguishable and deep-rooted Mexican cultural symptoms, la lucha libre. Muchas gracias.